In our series, A String of Pearls, DutchbuzZ contributors speak to people who have made an exceptional contribution to our local community. People whose passion for what they do have had an added value for the city of The Hague.
We continue our series on The Hague's Pearls by talking to The Hague environmentalist Joanna Bouma. Joanna settled in the city after completing her studies in London many years ago and is an active member of our international community. The global WEF Risks Report that came out last month shows that the effects of climate change are the biggest long-term threat facing humanity, and that it is more advanced than previously thought. I speak to Joanna about these issues and her life in The Hague. You've been active in the marine field here in The Hague and further abroad for a very long time. I think that's what we know you for. How did it start?
How did it start? My goodness. Well, I've always been a scuba diver. I started diving when I was, somewhere in my mid-20s or something. I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, but I can tell you it's many years ago. And in that time, I started becoming aware of seeing fewer sharks, less coral, more bleaching, all these sorts of problems that everyone reads about, but a lot of people don't actually see, because they only look across the water rather than under the water. And so that's when it all started. And then I took it up very, very seriously. I was working in development aid at the time for a children's organisation, and I wanted a year's sabbatical, so I worked as a volunteer in a marine project with the intention of working for 1 year. It turned out to be 5, but I had almost five fantastic years at sea, swimming with dolphins and whales and diving every day and snorkeling and working with scientists and conservationists. I'm not a scientist myself. I'm not a biologist. I'm a communications person. So what I was doing was picking up everything that they taught me and what I was seeing for myself and trying to share that through various media, schools, and so on. And then after 5 years, I came back to The Hague and started working for myself. And on the side, I work voluntarily for a few marine organizations. And one of them is the Sea First Foundation. And
Is that based here in The Hague?
no, it's not based in The Hague. We have volunteers all over the Netherlands and in Belgium. So in fact, our chairperson is in Belgium. But I sort of as it were, take care of The Hague and the regions around here. So I give lessons or readings, or anyone that wants to know something about the environment can always call me, and we'll always find a marine link, because everything is connected to the sea.
And I think you're pretty well known for your beach cleanups. Is that part of the foundation's work?
Yes, unfortunately, the last couple of years have been on hold, but we do in Scheveningen once a year normally. We do one beach clean, and then we do in other places as well. So, yeah.
What are your concerns for marine life? Let's start on the global, and let's mention the top 3.
Okay, well, as everyone knows, climate change, of course, but my concern as well related to climate change is that the chemistry of the seawater is changing, and that's going to affect marine life extremely. And what happens in the ocean happens on land, so it's going to affect us as well. So everything I'm going to say now will affect humans. So some people will think I'm only talking about marine life, but in fact, it's all-encompassing because it's planet-wide. Our whole climate is driven by the ocean circulation. So I'm worried about acidification of the ocean. I'm worried about the chemical balance in the ocean changing. I'm worried about more fresh water changing than the composition of salt water, fresh water, and cold water, hot water, hot heat rises and cold sinks kind of thing. So you get this, that's going to affect all the tides and the currents. Then, of course, all the other things like plastic. There's a lot of pollution that people are unaware of, like in the North Sea, but not only. But in the North Sea, there's a lot of ammunition dumping from the Second World War. This is still going on all the time. Satellites, rockets, whatever that get launched into space, and all the bits fall off into the ocean. That's a huge problem. Space debris it's called, but it doesn't stay in space. It comes down. The bits that land on Earth actually land in the ocean. And a lot of noise pollution and fertilizer runoff. I mean, the list is endless. People are often aware of plastic pollution because they see it in their own lives, and they see all these horrible pictures of turtles getting caught up and dolphins and so on. And that's absolutely horrific, but it's not the only form of pollution. And
we have the face masks now too.
Oh, they're everywhere. You only need to walk down the street or in the woods or something, and there are face masks everywhere. It's just...
So you can imagine the dumping in the ocean. Joanna, I know that when I invite you for dinner, the fish has to be off the menu.
Yeah, I stopped eating marine animals, let's put it that way. If I say seafood, I do eat seaweed and kelp and those sorts of things. So I can't sort of say no seafood for me, strictly, but I don't eat any animals from the sea, put it that way. That's also, apart from to protect the ocean, what little we have left of animals, it's also to protect my own health. You know, the fish, especially fatty fish, and if you eat off the top of the food chain or you eat right at the bottom with the filter feeders like mussels, you're eating so much pollution and so much plastic and PCBs and heavy metals. I just don't want to do it.
Are there any concerns off our coast here? Scheveningen, The Hague?
Yeah, I'm very dual about this. They're building lots of wind turbines, and we have to. I mean, for CO2 and so on. The only thing is that in the short term, they cause a lot of problems for the marine life, of course, because of all the vibrations and the noise. We don't know yet what the very, very, very long-term impacts are. We do know that certain animals will return once the building work has finished and the turbines are up and running, but we also know that some will not. And that's to do with the vibrations. For example, dolphins, all cetaceans, so the dolphins and whales and porpoises, they use echolocation, as bats do. And all the vibrations really affect them. And it sort of like makes their hearing go. It affects their hearing as well. And we also know that certain types of fish are very badly affected by vibrations too. So that happens primarily after the building. So you get that sort of like the years of the building work. That's really, really horrible for the underwater life. And then you get this constant vibration. And we don't know yet what the very, very long-term costs are. And then, of course, all the seabirds that fly, and we all know that the turbines on land affect like eagles and other kinds of birds. They fly into them. And we can only assume that this happens at sea as well. So I kind of like see the good sides of wind energy, and I also see the bad sides, and I have no answers. I really don't. I don't know what's best.
And then, of course, we've got
the sustainability goals
developed that have been really badly affected by the pandemic. And now, of course, a war going on in the Ukraine.
Well, it certainly will. My favourite of the SDGs, the sustainability goals, is number 14, life underwater, of course, as you can imagine. But any war is devastating for the environment. I mean, just to put people aside for a minute, any war is devastating for the environment. Though I have to say that during the Second World War, because of the sea mines in the North Sea, and by the way, there are still sea mines, you can see them on a chart. Because of all the sea mines and the warships and so on, some fish stocks and dolphins and whales actually made a slight comeback because they were not being fished. But I'm absolutely not saying that that wars are a good thing. Absolutely not.
We understand you.
But it also brings a whole lot of rubbish. Apart from the devastation of cities, it brings a lot of rubbish because your whole infrastructure collapses. So there's no, so everything's just going to end up. And the Netherlands, going back to your question about the North Sea, the Netherlands is, I call it the drain of Europe, because the major rivers end up here. So what happens in the Alps, for example, washes up here on our beaches or in our coast just outside of Scheveningen and the whole Dutch coast. And that's a problem.
I'm taking you back to the beginning. How did you land in The Hague? That's a question I've never had answered from you.
How did I land in The Hague? Okay, I graduated from London University School of Orient and African Studies, and just before I graduated, I was planning to go. My mother comes from Malaysia, and we were living as a family in Malaysia at the time. But my dad, who was Dutch, his company brought them to the Netherlands. So I didn't actually go home at the end of the last term, and I didn't want to stay in Britain. So I thought, well, let's just see what the Netherlands is like. I'd been here, yes, to visit our Dutch Oma and Opa, but that's it. And so I just came here, dropped my bags, went traveling for a couple of months, came back, and then somebody offered me a job, and then I started dating a guy. So I just stayed.
And here you are, how many years later?
Oh, God.
For the record?
That's giving it away. That must have been, I must have come here in about 83 or 4, something like that.
Half a lifetime ago, Joanna.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe more. Now, I asked you to bring along a treasured photograph, something off your desk where you spend most of your time, and something off your bedside table. What have you brought along? I'm renovating my house. My stuff is all in storage, so I haven't brought anything physically to show you, literally. So you're just going to have to believe me. So if you start with the photograph, something completely different from what you might expect. I used to do a lot of crazy things when I was a little bit younger, and one of them was parachute. I did a parachute jump just once in my life, and it was so fun. And we had glorious weather, and the view while you were dropping from the skies was beautiful. And I just remember that a friend of mine had organized a videographer, so I actually have a video, and I'm screaming the whole way down, but then with laughter, of course. I'm kind of attached and wonder. So I'm attached to the instructor, but you see the curvature of the earth, you see towns and farms, and it was beautiful weather, and then all you could hear is I could just imagine it. And on landing?
Oh no! I was absolutely hysterical. It was so funny. And I had my dog with me, my previous dog, and she just came up and licked me, kind of like, "Where did you jump from?" kind of thing. No, it was really nice. So it's just a lovely experience. Also, just seeing the Earth from above without being in an aeroplane like we're used to, or a high-rise block of flats. So that was just a really nice experience.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, sure.
I've always maintained if the airplane's burning, I'll elbow my way to the front and jump, but not voluntarily, no way. Joanna, something off your desk.
Yeah, that's a bit more difficult because of all the computer stuff I have. But if you look carefully, you'll see a calendar hanging above my desk, and every year, this is a bit of a tradition. My mother lives in Spain. I lost my father some years ago, and every year I make her what I call the Chinta calendar. Chinta's my dog, so I make a dog calendar for her. Just pictures of the dog.
I'm looking at it from a distance here, and I can see snow. Was that last year's February snow?
Yes, it was. Yeah. We were actually, so Chinta and I were in Spain, and we came back, and a couple of weeks later it started freezing. It was beautiful.
It was indeed. I really missed the skating this year. That was such a celebration.
Yeah, I have to say, I did one of those 10-kilometer tochter once on. It was a total disaster because we just came from Malaysia, and I'd never skated once in a rink or something. And I had a pair of the white, what do they call the kunstschats, and Dutch.
Yeah,
Is that so? Not the like distance skates, but the ice dancing kind of ones. Figure skates.
Figure skating.
That's it. And so you're not even professionals will do a 10 kilometer in those, and I did, and I couldn't skate, so I was walking on the ice with my arms outstretched. Everyone was so nice because they could clearly see that this was just not my thing at all. So people were going round and round in circles. They were doing like 60, 70 kilometers, and I was kind of like hobbling and doing my 10.
For 10 kilometers?
Yep, but I did it, and now I know it, because ice was completely out of my experience, that you have those sort of they look like holes in the ice, but in fact it's just clear, transparent ice, and you can just skate along them. But I didn't know.
You were avoiding them?
I was jumping over them. It was so, everyone was, until some nice guy stopped and he said, "Oh, mevrouw, you can just skate over them." Oh, okay, thank you.
But back to your calendar, obviously 12 months out in your neighborhood, most of them, or some of them broader afield, they must reflect all the seasons.
They do, so Mum gets a calendar showing Chinta in summer, Chinta in winter, Chinta in spring. So I try to kind of like choose the photos according to the season.
How lovely. Now something off your bedside table. What have you brought along?
Well, I probably have a very boring bedside table because apart from a glass of water every night, all I have there is actually a book. So I'm just reading a book at the moment called The Seamstress. That's an English language translation from it by a Spanish writer called Maria Dueñas. And I'm just really enjoying it. So that's it.
Now, I mentioned when I came in to do the interview that for the first time in my life, I was actually feeling a little world weary. I never thought I'd use that term, ever. But after 2 years of coming through COVID and now Putin's war, how are you feeling right now?
I'm trying to beat my world weariness and trying not to be too concerned. What can you do? My concerns are much more environmental, and I just hope that the situation in Ukraine with Russia doesn't escalate and doesn't affect the rest of Europe or the world. But it's not a good situation at all, as far as I can see. So I'm just trying to keep my worries to the worries that I worry about every day.
Now, you mentioned earlier in this interview that anybody looking for information to do with the environment, especially marine environments, should contact you. Can you give our listeners an email address? How should they reach you?
They can reach me through Joanna Bouma in one word at seafirst.org. So Joanna Bouma at seafirst.org.
Got it. Joanna Bouma, environmentalist, thank you so much for joining us on DutchbuzZ. For DutchbuzZ, I'm Lily-Anne Stroobach.
DutchbuzZ, made by the international community for the international community.